Hello, I am here with our very own AppaBug. Premium chatter in the community. Two-time NASA champion. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing great, and well, with a premium chatter on the line, I think it is about the right time to bring that chatter onto board as we have the Launchpad and upcoming NASA season on the way. Right, tomorrow is Launchpad, so we do have quite a lot of teams to look through, and I'll just jump right into it. Appa, which seven teams do you think will make it through Launchpad tomorrow?
Yeah, so I think the 100% lock, like the guarantee, I'd be genuinely surprised. I'd be willing to bet money on would be Modern Magic. I think that's kind of like the favorites. They're kind of like the bang bang of this season, I guess, in a sense.
Okay.
I think Carmine, Forgot, Ron P. Well, only one of them is a national player. I think the other two are very talented in their own right, and I think while they are a newer team, as a former chatting player, I'm very confident in Carmine's skills, and I think that Ron P and Forgot will not disappoint either. After that would probably be Lions Eat Bears. I think ironically they don't even have Lions Eat Bears on that team.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
but I think Vens is arguably the best midfielder in the entire tournament. Um, I think John Fortnite was probably a pretty good pickup. I know they were like looking around for a goalie last second. So I mean that could be like a thing to look out for. Maybe that's why it's only an 80% for me. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean I think that team is probably really strong, and I'd be surprised if they don't make it out. Um, Definitely will make it out if they don't make it out of the first one, but I'm almost guaranteed. After that's probably I'd say like Ember Blaze Flame, which is like I believe
That
third.
that's a player.
Maybe
Ember's Flame is the team.
it's gonna be Ember's Flame. Oh my god, I mean, the guy's not even on the team. Why are we naming our teams after players that aren't even on our team? Um, that team is good. I think that team will definitely make it out. Oh, very likely to make it out. You never know though. Like, there's a lot of like teams that I could see making it out, right? But I think that's a team I would be surprised if they didn't make it out. I think Ballin' Ballers is another team I'd be very surprised if they didn't make it out. I don't think they made it out of the first one last time. I think they made it out of the second one, but
Correct.
um, I think they're, for one, they're better than they were then. But two, I think the competition in that first launch pad was pretty strong. So I think that like I would be surprised if they didn't make it out. And then other than that, it's like I think Corpse Control is another team. I think will make it out. This team, I'm like unlike the other few I haven't listed. They could like struggle because they don't have Carmine, but I think Wee's a really good player. No bias here, but um, I think he's really solid. After that, I think there's two more teams that I like, two more slots. Since I think I listed five, it would probably be like one of the following. And a lot of it has to do with like what schedule, what teams they get matched up against. Maybe they get knocked out, unfortunately, against like one of these other teams or something. But like Woe Chills, he seems like a good competitor. Uh, Core Dynasty, excuse me. Party feels like a good competitor. Polar Cortex. These are all like teams full of former nasty NASA players on their teams. So I think they have the experience to at the very minimum make it out of Launchpad, put up a performance, and maybe even make it into NASA, or like at least the very minimum, make it to liftoff. Um, and then like after that, I like Cyber Swipes, Nobody, the Sheets. These are all good teams. Flying Blobos. I don't know if you might like them, because of their name. Uh,
Maybe, but
um,
also the players.
yeah, I mean I know the players. Pensando is kind of the goat. Um, but yeah, I mean I think I'm looking forward to these teams, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of these teams, I am really excited to see how they play. And hey, some of these teams you might not have even listed could punch above their weight class, and
Mm-mm.
that's kind of not what I want to get into yet. But first, I just want to talk about in general any standout performers you think there'll be this launchpad, any players to watch, whether that's on any of the teams you mentioned or on a team you didn't mention.
I think the easiest answer to this question would just be the entirety of Modern Magic. But
That's
like
no fun.
that's not what you're looking for. And that's not what anyone's looking for. I mean, my biased answers would be we and Roxas, because you know, might coach those players. But um, other than those players, I think some really good players would be Expo Chan. I think she's improved a lot. Since last Launchpad, I believe she was playing before on um, I can't. I think it's like a colon 3 or something team. I don't remember what their team name was anymore. But with like Kakupo and Tempo, but I think she's a lot better than she was then. Not that she was bad, but
Yeah.
um, I think she's one of the best midfielders, like secretly, and I don't think talked about that much. So that's like one of the players I'm really looking forward to. Actually, her teammate Zoe the Witch is another player that some players have mentioned. Not just because she shares a name with Liari, they might be the same person, but um, I mean, I think that's another really good player. There's actually so many good players that like I think that we're gonna see for the first time, kind of like last Launchpad. But like, there's also some players that didn't even participate in Launchpad last Launchpad, or didn't make the same, you know, name. I think Nikki Minilin, I think is her. I think
Yes,
that's how you
correct.
pronounce it. That's another player that could like really punch above their weight class. So yeah, I mean, I didn't even like name all the players that could. There's too many to count. But if you're gonna watch, like, if you want like a catalog of players to watch, like, I don't know if they're streaming or something, the few that I mentioned, I feel like would be a good start, to at least, like, get started on that.
Yeah, for sure. But we talked about players who could potentially punch above their weight class. But what about teams, right? Any teams you think might upset and potentially go further than most people would expect them to?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned 2 of the 3 players on Cyberswipe, which is Expo, Zoe, and Assertive. I think that
Yes.
team will punch. They actually played in a few weeklies, not super recently, but like almost a month ago, and did really well in those weeklies, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Um, and I think that, assuming that they're performing on that level again, I think they can easily punch above their weight class. I think the Sheets are another team. I think they struggled last Launchpad, but I think Shidoka's got a lot better. I think Tauk is still a very good player, and I think Krovi is like a question mark for sure, but they've played together. I think if the other two perform well, I think they'll bring each other up, type
Yeah.
deal. Um, and I guess my last one is just like the nobodies again. I think that team, um, they might be called the nobodies, but like, they've been scrimming a lot of really good players and like learning a lot of things really fast. Like, they've been consistently scrimming against Showtime, which is funny. Um, and I think that that's a team that like actually will surprise a lot of people. At least I hope. I mean, I'm biased here. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, I coached the players on that team, but um, they've been putting a lot of work in, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess another few teams that I was kind of thinking of, and well, not just me really. The other players I talked to mentioned them. Yin and Yang, Whiplash. Any thoughts about these two teams?
Yin and Yang. Let's see it.
Dragon
Just trying to
Claude,
find it.
Greatest Meme, and the guy that gets.
Um. Uh. I don't know. I don't think this team will punch a Blur rate cross. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'm proven wrong on a lot of chatting posts. It happens all the time. But um, I think this is a team that will have a better shot in Launchpad 2 than Launchpad 1, if that's like a good way to put it, right? I think if they're gonna make a mark, it will be in that second Launchpad after collecting the VODs and stuff, right?
Sure.
And then the other team you mentioned was Whiplash.
This was Whiplash. Ayla Lyra,
Yeah,
Hungry Boy Coin.
yeah, I could see this team. I was actually looking at this team earlier. I think I skipped over it a few times. I think they have experience on the roster in terms of like Coin and Hungry Boy, and even Illyria to an extent. Um, I think I mean, technically all 3 of those players played in NASA last season, right? Uh,
Yes.
but they haven't played together yet, or at least on a team together. And they're also players that I feel like were role players on their team. So
Hmm.
that's why I don't have them as high like being a role player isn't a bad thing, by the way.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
of
to point it
course.
out. The only my only question mark is sometimes when you have three role players on the same team, it's hard to make proactive plays against teams that are like are equal or better skilled than
Yeah.
you. Like right when you have a superstar, sometimes you can those two role players can like if they play smart, they can win. But when you have three role players, it's kind of hard to like. So a lot of times you'll just end up getting brute force through. That's my only like concern on this team. But as you know, as I said, there is technically three NASA players. Hungry Boy, was not just a NASA player, but placed second in the
Yep.
entire tournament, right? Coin and Lyria, I don't think they made playoffs. Maybe Coin did. I
Coin
think
did
Fools
with
knew.
Fools.
Yeah. But I think they both have experience, and I think Coin's played like 2 seasons now of NASA, so it's not even like it's his first rodeo either. So definitely, yeah, I can definitely see that team, but I'm not as excited about that team just because it's three NASA
Mm,
players, and I like our newcomers more.
yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, any thoughts about their actual midfielder? Because their actual midfielder is supposed to be Tempo Melon, who isn't really able to play in this first Launchpad due to behavioral restrictions. Um, any thoughts about how that would make the team differ?
I think I'm sorry, Temple. I think Hungry Boys would probably make your team better than you.
All good.
But you know what? Launchpad 2, you come back. It's an easier launchpad because all the best teams are gone. Well, not to say that there are not good teams still left, but the top of the line teams are gone. You can make your mark then, get VODs, you learn, you sneak into liftoff, and then you make your statement there. That's the play.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we are talking about, some of the best teams kind of making their way out through this first launchpad. Any of those teams you think will just go straight to Nassau, like for sure, or even teams that you think are like 99% locked for NASA, but maybe or may not make Nassau?
Okay, so I think Modern Magic is as I said earlier the bang bang of this season. I'd
Mm-hmm.
assume other people probably assume the same thing. It's
Yeah,
technically not the
roughly.
same, right? So Bang Bang had literally three well, two NASA players and arguably the best brawler in NASA at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, technically speaking, it's not the same thing. Well, this team only doesn't even like this team only has one NASA player, uh, you know, the best brawler in NASA, and then a player that's not was in NAST. But I think those statements don't represent the team well enough. I think that the individual skill level of all these players is good enough to make NASA or at least fight for a spot. I would be very surprised. I would be surprised if they made NASA. I think they'll make NASA.
Sure.
Um other than that, I don't think any other team, like no offense to every other team, I don't think any other team except maybe there's a universe where Vens is just the god of Omega Strikers, where any other team makes Nassel. I'm sorry to all these teams, but I don't know if any of them like I can see a world where like Mr. J Wisp or Lolamel, XDD, Vens, and John Fortnite make it, but it's like I think that it's just I think that like it's not those aren't enough I guess to not enough players to make it I guess or like good enough
Sure.
almost. Not to disrespect them. I think they're very good players. I just think the competition is really high, like really hard, right? And unfortunately, there's not as many teams disbanded this season as last time, if I remember correctly. Um, and most of the slots are kept the same.
I believe so.
So, so it's like you have to beat a team to make it, right? That means you have to be better than at the very minimum the worst Nassau team or the second worst Nassau team to make it in. I think I could see Modern Magic like that. I can't see any other team though like that, sadly.
Yeah, but any teams you think are like 99% going to be NASA, even if they don't make Nassau?
99% is hard to say. I would say there's a very likely chance Embers, Flame, and Lions Eat Bears make NASA. I'd be
Okay.
very surprised if they didn't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wouldn't bet 99%. I mean, they could have a bad day on the liftoff day. Honestly, I don't think the launch pad day will be it. Like, because you can make liftoff and not make NASA, right? If I remember correctly. It's only the top teams from Liftoff that, like, I think something like that,
Yes,
right?
correct.
They could just have a bad day on Liftoff or something and not make it. It would suck, but that's why I wouldn't give them the 99%.
For sure.
Um, but I think that I would be, I would say it's more likely they make NASA than not. Other than those two teams, everything is a coin flip. But I think that I would expect most of the teams that make it out of the first Launchpad to make NASA. I think usually, I think for one that some of the NASA teams, like the competition, isn't as hard to like kick them out of the slots. I think some of these teams are better than some of the remnants of some of the NASA teams from last season because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of them aren't even like the full teams, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think so. I think I would, expect out of the 7 teams, at least 5 or 6 of them make the very minimum NASA.
Okay,
I'd be
great.
I'd be surprised anything less than that.
Yeah. But of course, with consistent performances do come a little bit of variance, right? Are there any teams that you think have like pretty high variance, like they could have some really high highs but also some really low lows?
Yeah. I keep on bringing up Modern Magic. I think that's gonna be the big question mark for them in landing whether they can beat because I actually think that team is gonna be high variance. I don't think it will show up until they actually make Nassau though. I think they're good enough to like where it won't matter. But
Mm-hmm.
I think once they make Nassau, that's when the variance will show up. Sadly, that's not the question though. Um, uh, I would say see that the thing is my expectations and the global expectations are different, right? My expectations of some of these teams is higher than the global expectations, and I could see some of these teams like collapsing.
Yeah.
Um, like I was mentioning the team I coach myself, and I could see that team not performing very high, but I don't think the uh global outlook on the nobodies is like super high, right? But like I would say like Woe Chills is one of the teams I would look at as like a team that just doesn't perform on the day or something. Or Core Dynasty Party, and that's another one that could like not perform on the day. Corpse Control as well. I think those are like my big three, but there's like I think that it's kind of hard to say because I think
Mm.
with a lot of these teams, any of them can beat any other one on the day if they're cooking, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But I think we've spent enough time talking about the teams.
Mhm.
Let's head over to kind of the meta as a whole, right? Any characters you think that'll be like general like pick bans with the current meta and map picks?
Yeah, we're out of the age of Finny. Yeah, we saw enough of that in season 4. Um, I think X Asher are going to be so actually in Launchpad. I don't think it will be as prevalent, right? I think a
Okay.
lot of these players are going to be willing to experiment, play their mains, etc., etc. I think we'll really start seeing is in Liftoff, but I do expect to see at least some extent in Launchpad. I would be surprised if Asher and X aren't the most picked brawlers in the on the patch. Maybe Zentaro is good too because perfect form, etc., etc. Super Surge, just like so many good awakenings there. I think Juliet will see more of this patch than last patch, but I don't know how many Juliet players there are even in the Launchpad. That doesn't look like there's too many. Um, the age of the Juliet is gone. Sorry, '07.
Yeah.
But like I think she's actually pretty okay. I think it's just gonna be X Asher and then like Zentaro. I think those are gonna be our three. Like regardless of what the game is, I'd be surprised if a game is played um past Launchpad, where none of them are even picked or banned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like that's just all obviously only brawlers. I think midfield and goalie have more variance. There's a lot of goalie players that will play specifically like defensive goalies, or specifically offensive goalies. So then we could see matchups where it's like two defensive goalie players, and you're not going to see an IME. But I think IME is like super strong, right? For example, um, but like it could be a chance that no one on either team plays it, right? So that could happen. Uh, and stuff like that. That's why I think the brawlers are the easiest ones to say pick or ban. I think
Fair.
we could see Juno though, like for characters that I'd be you might be surprised to see. I guess that's kind of the next question. I'm
Yeah, no, I
sorry
mean
for
go
doing
ahead.
but like, Juno, I mean, not really off meta, but I think she's a lot stronger this patch than she was last patch,
Sure.
which isn't saying too much, but I think that she got a lot of help. I think there's also some Juno players like Jay, in there. That I mean, I think Jay will never play it. I think it will be perma banned. But
Because he forgot
um,
on it.
forgot, yeah, forgot's a good, another good one.
Pensando.
Zack Smack, Pensando, anyone on Woe Chills because they have like three Juno players. I guess two, but like honestly, I mean Taco is next up on that Juno.
Yeah, surely.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of also wanted to pick your brain a little bit, just specifically the brawlers. You did say Asher X pick ban, right? How do you feel the brawlers kind of like shake up after that?
Well, I think I mentioned Zataro as well. I think
Right.
Zataro is like right next. After that, though, a lot of it's map dependent. A lot of it's player dependent. So if we're, I mean, I think Rasmus is really good too. I think Rasmus, especially with in like Launchpad, like all of these Launchpad Jimmies play this Rasmus character, right? Every single one of them. So Rasmus will be probably played, if not more than like Zentaro or maybe even X. But it doesn't mean I think he's better necessarily. But like I think he'll be played a lot too. So my bad for forgetting to mention him.
Oh yeah.
After that, I did mention Juliet, though not sure how much people will play her because I think there's not too many Juliet players in here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and other than that, it's like
Kazan.
I mean I think Kazan. I think he'll be played. I think he'll definitely be played. There's Name Chaotic, right? There's no way that Name Chaotic doesn't play a single game this tournament on Kazan, right? Like unless it's just permabanned.
Yeah.
But um,
Wisp and Zerd, Zoe the Witch.
I think Zoe the Witch, Zert. I don't think Wisp will play it. Well, maybe team player start. I know Wisp loves that character so much, but I don't think Wisp will take it unless it's a start for it. I mean, also I think Mr. Zert would rather have it on that
Mm-hmm.
team. But there's a few Kazan players, but I don't think outside those players like it will be picked that much. I think if it's picked, it's because like a team wants to play Rasmus, but the other team got Rasmus, so they
Fair.
pick Rasmus at home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think it's like that, but it's like I don't know. I think people are gonna play it more than they should. I don't think the character is even like as good as like people will play. I've been seeing a little bit in like these scrims of like these NASA teams and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and nasty teams. Um, and it's performed pretty well, I guess, but I'm not sold. So I think if people play it, it'll be specifically in Launchpad, and then it'll just like kind of drift off a little bit and lift off unless like the Awakenings are good and other characters are banned.
Yeah, that's completely fair for this Kazan character. But I guess with our questions kind of mostly answered, do you? There's one more question I do have for you. Do you have any sort of messages to any of the Launchpad teams that are going to be competing tomorrow? It doesn't have to be to anyone specific, just generally.
Oh yeah. So number one, uh, remember there's this Launchpad one. There's a one in front of it, implying there's a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really hard to make out the first one. All right, the second one is going to be most likely most of the players on this list, like on the like all out of all the players. I mean, on the like out of all the teams, most of the players are gonna have the best shot during the second one. So that's something to note.
Yeah.
So unless you're like one of those really top teams, honestly, use this as your VOD learning experience. Honestly, record the VODs, watch the VODs, watch what other people are doing because you can learn so much from watching Omega Strikers gameplay. And I think it's like super underutilized. It's sometimes hard because it's like I don't want to watch my own gameplay. It's so cringe, or I don't want to watch some other player play. It's so cringe. But like, you have to be more open minded about it. Like you can learn things even when I'm watching like OSAS players, I learn things that like because I think about it, like even if like an OSAS player does something that they don't even tend to work, or like a Launchpad player does something that they don't intend to work, or don't like intend to do it, and sometimes it works out. Even like you can watch that type of thing and learn it from it, and be like, oh, actually, this is kind of like pretty cool. So like watch your VODs. Honestly, it's so important. I know a lot of you guys scrim, um, especially each other. Not all you guys play in tournaments. Um, but I think the number one thing is just watch your gameplay. Become self-aware, because when you get self-awareness, you start understanding the game better, and not only does it help you in the short term because it like will help you make minute decisions, but it helps you in the long term because it teaches you how to learn. Right? It literally teaches you how to learn when you watch your gameplay. So I think that is like the number one advice. If you don't make it in, I hope you have a lot of odds saved because that's your best shot. Study up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that, I suppose it's time we end things here. Thank you, Appa, once again for coming on and gracing us with the teacher of the chatting classroom's presence.
Yep.
It was great to have you here, and I guess with that, we'll head off. Good luck in Launchpad, everyone.
Yep. Good luck in Launchpad.